focus on the data leak story. Amid the growing political debate in India, the government has finally acted. The government of India has slapped Facebook with a notice demanding answers to 5 specific questions and given them time till the 7th of April to respond. The Indian government has asked Facebook to answer the following questions. Question number 1, was personal data of Indian voters compromised, and how? Question number 2, have Indian elections been manipulated in the past? Question number 3, if data was misused from Facebook, what protection is available? Number 4, what steps is Facebook taking to prevent manipulation of polls in India? What measures will Facebook take to ensure privacy of users and prevent misuse? But can the government of India force Mark Zuckerberg to depose before it? That's the question we are asking. Legal experts believe that chances of Mark Zuckerberg personally coming to India to answer questions are very, very slim. Even if the government manages to secure a summons from a court, it is up to the Facebook CEO to comply. Unlike possibly in the case of a criminal case pending in India, Mark Zuckerberg has no legal obligation to comply with a summons from the government. India could use the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty with the United States to request Mark Zuckerberg to depose in this country. But again, American authorities have every right to deny they need not comply. So any political declaration of making Mark Zuckerberg answer is little more than grandstanding at this point. Having said that, the government of India has enough ammunition to pin the opposition down on this story. The Congress party has been fighting reports of seeking assistance from Cambridge Analytica to influence voters. Now an image is adding to their woes. Let's put it up for you. The image on your screens that will appear shortly shows Cambridge Analytica's now suspended CEO Alexander Nix in his London office. What you just saw was Christopher Wiley. This is Alexander Nix in his London office. Do you notice what is in the background? The wall behind Nix has a poster of the Congress party. The poster stands out with a hand symbol of the Congress party. It has the caption, "Development for All." A picture, they say, speaks more than 1,000 words, and this picture certainly does. This image surfaced just a day after whistleblower Christopher Wiley alleged that the Congress was one of the clients of the data firm Cambridge Analytica. But this is not just the Congress party that is in the line of fire right now. Whistleblower Christopher Wiley has tweeted more details of his firm's operations in India, his former firm's operations in India. He said, and I quote, "I've been getting a lot of requests from Indian journalists, so here are some of SCL's past projects in India." SCL is the Indian subsidiary of Cambridge Analytica. To the most frequently asked question, yes, SCL or Cambridge Analytica works in India. It has offices here. This is what modern colonialism looks like. Wiley's words. The tweet was followed by details of the firm's operations. What do they do in India? According to the information provided by Mr. Wiley, Strategic Communications Laboratory, SCL, which is an offshoot of Cambridge Analytica, worked on behalf of a national party in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh in 2012. It looked at prevalent caste structures in the state to identify the party's core voters, essentially used for elections. A year before it began work on the project, SCL worked for individual candidates in the state as well. The firm also helped develop poll strategies for a number of Lok Sabha candidates during the 2009 general election. And a year later, SCL carried out electoral research for the Janata Dal United, the JDU, the only party that has been named in this list. The objective of the survey carried out for JDU was to assist it in identifying target castes before the Bihar state election. Essentially, data mining to help a party or an individual win an election. Wiley also claims that SCL conducted a full political survey on behalf of a major party in Uttar Pradesh in 2007 to ascertain satisfaction levels of party workers at the booth level. The India offshoot of Cambridge Analytica also carried out a psephological study for a national political party during election in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh back in 2003. So they've been operating for 15 years now, it seems. In a nutshell, if associating with Cambridge Analytica is a crime, there are many guilty parties in India, and we haven't heard the last of this. Meanwhile, the country he visited, China, is working on implementing a new class system. And to best understand it, let's start with what's happening in India. In this country, many have complained about Aadhaar, the national unique identity that uses biometric details in a database of residents. The allegation by the critics here in India is that Aadhaar breaches a citizen's privacy. But having a unique ID is nothing compared to what's happening in China. Imagine a system that's the mother of all surveillance, a system that constantly monitors and evaluates you. You're under watch 24/7 and you're being graded for your behavior. China's social credit system is going to be a reality soon. Take a look at this.
What you eat, what you buy, where you go. China is going a step ahead, tracking citizens' movements, behavior, and actions on a daily basis. And Beijing is giving citizens scores based on that. But an interesting question is, how will China evaluate the good, the bad, and the ugly? How will it rank its own citizens? For instance, citizens would earn a low rating for spreading false information, for causing trouble on a flight, for using expired tickets on public transport, obstructing footpaths with electric bikes, smoking on trains, or for failing to pay social insurance and fines. But citizens can also earn good points by doing things such as charity works, separating and recycling rubbish, protecting the environment, and donating blood. And the overall score is connected to citizens' identification card number, which will then be used to either reward or punish them. Chinese citizens who score low on the country's newly designed social ranking system will face unpleasant consequences. The country says it will first ban people with poor score from flights and trains, which means initially people with a low score on the social credit scale will be stopped from taking planes and trains for up to a year. China is now openly talking about the social credit system and travel restrictions, but trials have been taking place across China's provinces for quite some time, and under a pilot scheme, over 12 million people in the country have already been slapped with domestic travel bans for bad behavior. And the penalty doesn't end here. Citizens can also be blacklisted based on their trust score. And as we know that publishing the details of blacklisted citizens online is a common practice in China. But there is an upside to the system as well. There are rewards for those who comply by the social rules and norms and earn a good score. For instance, citizens with good social credit scores can enjoy free gym facilities, cheaper public transport, and shorter wait times in hospitals. What else? Alibaba's car vending machine in China has announced it will give free test drives to people with good credit scores. The new rules of the social credit system will come into effect from May 1st, and the country will keep on revising them. China is planning to implement the social credit system fully by 2020. While the system might look promising, but the fear is that it could be used to push the government's agenda and to suppress dissent. We wonder what's next in China. Bureau Report, WION.
China's new credit score system is frightening, to say the least. Yes, it does push the people of the country to be model citizens, but at what cost? The kind of company you keep, the purchases you make, the websites you visit, the time you spend on these websites, all these factors will determine what score you get, and that is the scary part. What is wrong with the system is that it could also dangerously destroy someone's life. The new system could potentially be used to push the government's agenda and to crack down on dissent. Another concern with such a system is, how do you quantify trustworthiness and responsibility of an individual? What if you miss paying a bill because you were in the hospital? What if you spend too much time on a website that the agencies think deserves a low rating for a research project at school? There are no easy answers. The system gives way too much social control in the hands of one, risking massive abuse of power. Those in positions of power could easily circumvent the existing norms and still maintain a good score. The system also believes in public shaming of blacklisted citizens. China is one of the first countries to explore such a system. We haven't heard of something like this anywhere else in the world, because China holds a cultural, the system holds a cultural meaning in China. The Chinese notion of credit relates to moral ideas of honesty and trust. Hence the emphasis on judging one's social behavior before deciding where they stand in the food chain. Let's talk about the future of China's neighbor, Russia. And for that, let's go back to the recent past. 10 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin celebrated a handsome victory. Russia voted overwhelmingly in Putin's favor. According to the official numbers, Putin received 77% of the total votes cast. Russian agencies say that there was a turnout of almost 70%. These numbers should not leave any doubt over the Russian president's popularity. Putin won the election and a record fourth term as an independent. And the high voter turnout numbers give legitimacy to the mandate to Putin. But there's a slight problem. The ugly side of these elections was caught on camera. Election observers were caught stuffing extra votes into the ballots. There were 7 candidates who were challenging President Putin in this election. They were crying foul after the results. The Russian president's main challenger, Alexei Navalny, who was not allowed to contest the poll, said that it had been staged and voter numbers were rigged. But nothing could stop Vladimir Putin from securing another 6 years in office. The next 6 years so are very critical for the president as he now attempts to rebuild Russia's influence on a global stage. As per the law book, he cannot stand for re-election in 2024 unless he changes the constitution. The Russian president now faces 2 choices, as were before the Chinese president Xi Jinping not very long ago. He could either choose to groom a successor and rule from the shadows after leaving office in 2024, or could choose to do what Xi Jinping did, pass an amendment to the Russian constitution that would allow him to rule for lifetime. But this could prove to be a challenge for Vladimir Putin. Why are we talking about this? Because right after that big win, that supposedly big victory, Vladimir Putin is facing challenges both at home and outside. We'll start with what's happening in Moscow. A group of young Russian elites are waiting in the wings to stake claim to the throne. This new generation of lawmakers, or technocrats as they're often called, are exposed to the world outside Russia. They cringe at Putin's ultra-conservative agenda. They want Russian institutions to follow the law. They want Russia to be a transparent country. The new generation is steadily making its place in Russia's polity. 6 out of 85 governors in Russia are now under 40 years of age. The president himself has begun appointing young technocrats in different government ministries. In fact, he promoted them at one point. He still does. Russia's growing isolation only adds to Putin's troubles. And now we're talking about what's happening across the world. Sanctions against Russia and the fall in oil prices has slowed down the country's growth and economy. But the wrath of Western countries has given the Russian president a boost in popularity at home, some say. He's emerged as a tough leader. Putin has been able to spin the narrative against the US and its allies, blaming them for isolating Russia for political gains. Experts feel that the attack on Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia has sparked the likelihood of fresh tensions between the US, its allies and Russia, many calling it the Second Cold War.
Again, the United States and Russia are not entering into a new Cold War, but this is a volatile situation that in some ways presents more danger and unpredictability than what we saw in the Cold War. Well, this is certainly the next step in what I would call a downward spiral of U.S.-Russia relations. This is one that was started and amplified by the Russian nerve agent attack on the former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter on UK soil. And I also think that this is a good sign of U.S. solidarity with the United Kingdom.
So just to drive home the point of how isolated Russia under Vladimir Putin right now is internationally, let's take a look at how many countries have expelled Russian diplomats over the past few days. Britain says 25 countries are moving to expel Russian diplomats. Let's tell you which countries around the world have so far asked Russian diplomats to return home. We're starting with the European countries. There you have it. Ireland, Belgium, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Hungary, Romania, Croatia, all of them expelling at least one Russian diplomat, asking them to leave. The governments of Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands and Spain have asked 2 Russian diplomats each to leave the country. The Czech Republic and Lithuania come next, 3 Russian diplomats each for these countries. If we put them all together, this is pretty much the entire European continent. Next come France, Germany and Poland. They've asked 4 Russian diplomats each to leave. Then we look at some other countries around the world. The governments of Macedonia and Norway have expelled 1 Russian diplomat each. These are small countries, and accordingly they have taken these decisions. 2 Russian diplomats from Albania and Australia. This is across the world. Many countries in Europe will come to the North American continent in a bit. Moldova will expel 3 diplomats. Canada has decided to expel 4 Russian diplomats. And Ukraine, understandably, has decided to expel 13 Russians. The United States has expelled the most number of Russian diplomats, 60 in all, the biggest such move since 1986, we've been saying from the word go. And it started, of course, with the UK that decided to expel 23 Russian diplomats after the British government decided and declared that there was a clear Russian hand in the poisoning of the double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in the British town of Salisbury. The Kremlin so far has been silent, and that's what makes the story very, very interesting. Why is Moscow not retaliating? Moscow is calling it a provocation, but it's not retaliating. Earlier today, the Russian government spokesperson told media that they will retaliate. They've been saying this for a while, but at a time of their own choosing. Moscow, meanwhile, has raised questions over the claims made by the United Kingdom. Listen into this.
Мы надеемся на то, что страны, которые солидаризировались с Великобританией и приняли решение о высылке наших дипломатов, все-таки посчитают необходимым задуматься, насколько можно считать достоверным представленную информацию, которая подается как доказательство вот этой эфемерной причастности России к событиям в Солсбери.
So what happens next? Russia is expected to give a tit-for-tat response. We just don't know when. In the past, Moscow chose to cut US diplomatic staff by 755 instead of expelling specific diplomats. After the United Kingdom expelled 23 diplomats earlier this month, Russia retaliated by ordering the British Council to cease its operations in the country. The diplomatic war is also playing out on Twitter. The Twitter account of the Russian embassy in the United Kingdom ran a poll asking users to vote on which American consulate should be closed in Russia.